Homestead and welcome to my channel. In this video, we're going to be going over part of this talk by President M. Russell Ballard called Hope in Christ. I wanted to do this, I've been wanting to do it for a while because when there was that United Kingdom devotional where you had the three apostles that went to the United Kingdom, you had President Ballard, Elder Holland, and Elder Cook. They all served their missions in the UK. I listened to their talks and stuff, and President Ballard said that this particular talk right here, this is from April 2021, that he put like a lot of work into this one. He did a lot of like research, checking with other, I guess, apostles, the first presidency to make sure everything was doctrinally correct. And I didn't know what he was talking because I didn't remember the talk. And so it was on my to-do list, and I have gotten to this point in my to-do list to do this video. So before we get into it, I want to share some pictures here that somebody sent in, which is perfect for this video actually. This is from Spencer and Allison Kelly. Now, I had to look it up because they didn't put it in the email, but this I'm pretty sure, I'm absolutely sure because I did some checking different pictures. It looks like they got sealed in the Manti Temple. So this is the Manti Temple. This is the same one that my great grandma on my dad's side got married and sealed in. And I've only been through it once, but I enjoyed the experience very much. He says, this is from Spencer. He says, I just thought I'd share a few pictures of my wife and me when we got married in October 2001. Hopefully you can share these on one of your videos. I really enjoy the video and the information that you present in your videos. I included a few pictures from our reception, one with my wife with her parents, and with my parents and grandparents. I just thought you would like to use whatever pictures you feel like. Well, thank you so much, Spencer and Allison. This is wonderful. This is setting a good example, because this is the ultimate goal, isn't it? This is how you obtain the highest degree in the celestial kingdom, is through celestial marriage and being sealed. And that's actually, it turns out that that's what this video has to do with, in this talk. So thank you very much. If anybody else wants to send in their marriage pictures when they got married, sealed, if you're a veteran and you have pictures from when you were in the service or a missionary or whatever, send it. I like to interact with you guys and see your faces and just celebrate you and the things that you've done in your life. Okay, so we have President Ballard, Hope in Christ. Okay, so I was really interested about this. Why would he have spent so much time on this one particular talk? Well, let's see what it's about. Okay, and it ties in with other things that I've been looking at. This actually has to do a lot, I think, with the Millennium. It has a lot to do with the Millennium. So he says, partway down, brothers and sisters, more than half of adults in the church today are widowed, divorced, or not yet married. Some wonder about their opportunities and place in God's plan and in his church. Right? So some do. Some worry, or not everyone is probably going to get married in this life. Some people may be married to someone that's not a member of the church, maybe whatever the circumstances are. There's so many varied different circumstances, right? And so this is basically what he wants to address and what we're going to talk about. We're going to look at his talk. We're going to look at 2 books from the Doctrines of Salvation. We're going to look at volumes 2 and 3, and then a few other things, because this is interesting. And I've noticed that there's been somewhat of an uptick in talking about this type of stuff, things that would have to do with the Millennium. I think it's because the Millennium is really close and we're almost there, and there's going to be, well, let's just read. Okay, so we should understand that eternal life is not simply a question of current marital status, but of discipleship and being, quote, valiant in the testimony of Christ. Okay, so no matter your circumstances, uh, single, not married to a member of the church, divorced, widowed, whatever, um, the primary concern for all of us should be our discipleship, okay? And being valiant in the testimony of Christ. The hope of all who are single is the same as for all members of the Lord's restored church. Access to the grace of Christ through, quote, obedience to the laws and ordinances of the gospel. May I suggest that there are some important principles we need to understand. First, scriptures in Latter-day Prophets confirm that everyone who is faithful in keeping gospel covenants will have the opportunity for exaltation. Okay? And I think that that would include, because, there's three levels to the celestial kingdom. I think usually when we're talking about exaltation, you may have to remind me in the comments, but exaltation, I think that specifically refers to the highest degree. So, meaning being sealed, right? Excuse me. So, everyone who is faithful in keeping gospel covenants will have the opportunity for exaltation. President Russell M. Nelson taught, quote, in the Lord's own way and time, no blessing will be withheld from his faithful saints. The Lord will judge and reward each individual according to heartfelt desire as well as deed. End quote. Okay, so it's going to be made right. It's going to be okay. It may suck right now. There may be concern, but don't. It's all going to be fixed. Second, the precise time and manner in which the blessings of exaltation are bestowed have not all been revealed, but they are nonetheless assured. Now, that's an interesting phrase there. Second, the precise time and manner in which the blessings of exaltation are bestowed have not all been revealed. So, I don't know if what he's saying here is basically, we don't know how it's going to work out in the eternities. We don't know how it's going to work out in the millennium, or if there's like additional things that haven't been revealed that will fix these different types of issues. It may be what he's referring to. Um, but basically, in some way, maybe through ways that are not revealed yet, these things are assured that you'll receive all the blessings that you're entitled to. President Dallin H. Oaks explained that some of the circumstances, quote, of mortality will be set right in the millennium, which is the time for fulfilling all that is incomplete in the great plan of happiness for all of our Father's worthy children. All right. So we know that there's going to be a lot of temple work done for the dead during the millennium. But there also might be things that are fixed in the millennium, because we're living in a telestial world right now, and things get really messed up. Uh, Many times not due to our own fault. And so, we're living among celestial people. Um, we're also living, sometimes I think we're kind of living in a fog, because uh, this kind of gets really off on another path, but um, we're living in a world where people lie, or they'll do things to obtain certain goals. Um, I know of a couple instances in my personal life where you have somebody that basically they'll be like, oh yeah, they're not like a member of the church, and then they get baptized, and then you get married to someone who is a member of the church, and it seems like genuine. It seems like everything's going to be fine, but then later they just fall away from the church, almost as though they join the church simply to um, get married. And I know that's not really comfortable to talk about, but it does happen, and I feel like I've seen that before. And so someone who genuinely thought that that person was being genuine, I don't think that they're going to miss out on the blessings of exaltation. And so, pretend that you're one of those people right now. You live into the millennium. I think that things will work out for you. Things will be made right. And so this is like another one of the things, like when President Nelson talks about the second coming, he says to be physically prepared, spiritually prepared, but also emotionally prepared. And why is that? Well, the big one that I've talked about many times on the channel is because uh, everyone that's living a telestial law will not be here once we move into the millennium. Uh, and I'm pretty sure that every single one of you have friends, family members, um, you know, that are living telestial law, and that's going to be maybe a really emotional time. I'm sure that it will be. On top of that, things are going to be rearranged. We're gonna read about that in Doctrines of Salvation. President Joseph Fielding Smith kind of goes into more detail about that, but it's gonna be a time of great happiness, and I think it'd be wise of all of us just to consider what's going to be happening, right? Um, we know that ultimately these things are going to happen in the eternities because there's going to be a final judgment, but uh, in one sense, we're going to be experiencing a lot of these things here in this life as we move into the millennium. So, anyway, continuing on, um, he says that doesn't mean that every blessing is deferred until the millennium. Some have already been received, and others will continue to be received until that day. Third, waiting upon the Lord implies continued obedience and spiritual progress toward Him. Waiting upon the Lord does not imply biding one's time. You should never feel like you are in a waiting room. Waiting upon the Lord implies action. I have learned over the years that our hope in Christ increases when we serve others. Serving as Jesus served, we naturally increase our hope in Him. The personal growth one can achieve now while waiting upon the Lord and His promises is an invaluable sacred element of His plan for each one of us. Excuse me. The contributions can one can make now to help build up the church on earth and to gather Israel are much needed. Marital status has nothing to do with one's capacity to serve. The Lord honors those who serve and wait upon Him in patience and faith. Fourth, God offers eternal life to all of His children. I'm not going to read that portion. Fifth, our confidence in these assurances is rooted in our faith in Jesus Christ, by whose grace all things pertaining to mortality are set right. Okay? Through His grace, all things pertaining to mortality are set right. Okay. All promised blessings are made possible through Him who, by His atonement, quote, descended below all things and has, quote, overcome the world. He, quote, hath sat down on the he hath sat down on the right hand of God to claim of the Father His right of mercy, which He hath upon the children of men. Wherefore He advocateth the cause of the children of men, end quote. In the end, quote, the saints shall be filled with His glory and receive their inheritance as joint heirs with Christ, end quote. Our desire is that these principles uh, will help all have increased hope in Christ and feel a sense of belonging. Never forget that you are a child of God, our eternal Father, now and forever. He loves you, and the church wants and needs you. Yes, we need you. We need your voices, talents, skills, goodness, and righteousness. For many years, we have talked about, quote, young single adults, and adults. Those designations can be administratively helpful at times, but can inadvertently change how we perceive others. Is there a way to avoid this human tendency that can separate us from one another? President Nelson asked that we refer to ourselves as members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. That seems to cover all of us, doesn't it? All right, skipping down. To you, stake presidents, bishops, and quorum and sister leaders, I ask you to consider every member of your stake, ward, quorum, or organization as a member who can contribute and serve in callings and participate in many ways. Every member in our quorums, organizations, wards, and stakes has God-given gifts and talents that can help build up his kingdom now. Let us call upon our members who are single to serve, lift, and teach. Disregard old notions and ideas that have sometimes unintentionally contributed to their feelings of loneliness in that they do not belong or cannot serve. Okay, and that's all I'm going to read from his talk. So, you know, we all have infinite potential and ability, and we can use a lot of that in this life, regardless of whether you're married or not. So just do everything that you can to consecrate your gifts to the Lord, and things will be made right. So let's get into some of the details here in Doctrines of Salvation. First, we're in Volume 2. And unfortunately, I can't highlight in here like I'd like to. So I'm just going to have to um, kind of look at things as we go. Okay, policies governing temple ceilings. Okay, ordinances not to be performed for all. Some people think we have got to do the work in the temple for everybody. Temple work belongs to the celestial kingdom, not to the other kingdoms. There will be millions of people, countless as the sands upon the seashore, who will not enter into the celestial kingdom. That we are told in these revelations. There will be no need to do temple work for them. To be exalted in the celestial kingdom, one must be endowed and receive the sealing blessings. There will be many who will enter the kingdom as servants, but only those who comply with all the laws and covenants will be exalted. So I think what he's referring to here is, as of right now, okay, in the pre-millennial world, we do ordinances for everybody that we can find. But Joseph Fielding Smith has said that in the millennium, resurrected beings are going to basically provide us with the records and information that we need to do temple work for those that have accepted it in the spirit world. So I assume what he's referring to here is we will know who in the spirit world has accepted um, the gospel, who would accept the covenants, and so we'll do the work for them, but I guess not for those who have not accepted it. So that's the only way that this makes sense to me, this statement. If you have any other ideas, put that in the comments below. Okay. No blessing will be denied the faithful. Now, this goes along with President Ballard's talk. Those who have been faithful members of the church and could not reach a temple while living will have the work done for them after they are dead. We have now. I'm assuming that that's well. Okay, let's just read on. Okay. We have the assurance that the Lord will reward every soul according to his or her works. He will judge us, or he will judge each of us by the intent of the heart. If any worthy person is denied in this life the blessings which so readily come to others, and yet lives faithfully and to the best of his or her ability, is striving to keep the commandments of the Lord, then nothing will be lost to him or her. Such a person will be given all the blessings that can be given. The Lord will make up to him or her the fullness after this life is ended, and the full life, sorry, is ended, and the full life has come. The Lord will not overlook a single soul who is worthy, but will grant to him or her all that can be given, which those apparently more fortunate received in this life. Okay. No matchmaking for the dead. Now, this is kind of interesting. We never make matches for the dead in the temples. The Lord will bless all who are worthy of the blessings, and they will lose nothing. The work of the millennium will be largely work for the dead who did not have an opportunity when living to obtain the blessings, but who would have accepted the blessings if they had lived. Justice demands this, and he capitalizes the J, justice. We need not worry, therefore, because young men or young women die without being married. All who are worthy will be blessed just the same as if they had lived and obtained the blessings. Where, however, a couple is engaged and the woman dies, she may be sealed to her intended husband. Now, I'm not. I don't know if that's still church policy because that things like that can change. I think over time. I'm not aware of anybody where this has been the case. Um, he does specify here that if the woman dies, she may be sealed to the intended husband, and that's probably because of and I know that this isn't like a favorite topic of many people, but probably because of plural marriage, right? It probably wouldn't go the other way around because that guy can go on, he's the survivor and he can marry someone else, get sealed. But I don't know. I'd be interested if you're aware of anyone anywhere where this has happened. Let me know because that's something I never knew. That's fascinating. It's very nice. It's a very nice thought. But anyway, um, so this section is talking about you don't do, oh, wouldn't it be nice for him and her to be together? Let's take their names to the temple and get them sealed. That's not how it goes. However, it's my understanding that when you're working in family search and you have somebody that has been married multiple times and then like there's like divorces and stuff like that, I think now I may be wrong, so don't go find out the official church policy. But I think what happens is that you get sealed to all of everyone that you were married to, and then that stuff gets worked out in the end. Um, so I don't know. Uh, Somehow that gets worked out. Okay, adjustment of sealings during millennium. Children who are legally adopted may, under proper circumstances, be sealed into families who adopted them. It is not possible, however, to rob the dead of their children if they are entitled to them, even if they are adopted by others. So it's like, I guess you have a child and then you die. Uh, the family that takes over can't just like take them away from you if you're worthy. So I think that's what he's talking about there. If a man or woman who has been sealed in the temple for time and eternity should sin and lose the right to receive the exaltation in the celestial kingdom, he or she could not retard the progress of the injured companion who had been faithful. Everyone will be judged according to his works, and there would be no justice in condemning the innocent for the sins of the guilty. Now, see, this is where more um, emotional preparation comes in, because I guarantee if you took everybody in the church, not everybody is married to someone that will achieve exaltation. Okay, let's just say it. Um, there are people. I've talked about this before. There we have. Sorry, this is hard to talk about. Um, in the church, we have wheat and tares. It's in the scriptures, okay? It's a known fact. There are wheat and there are tares. How is this possible? Well, in what does a tare look like? Okay. So I am fully expecting in the millennium that there will be people that you thought were good people, either because they're always helping people, or maybe they have a high church calling or something like that. and then they don't make it into the millennium. How could that be? Well, brothers and sisters, people lie. It, people lie. There are people that will assume almost like a costume, treat this life like it's a board game. So if you're, like I've said before, in Christ's day, if you were born um, within Israel, the way that you succeed in life, whether you're looking for attention, you're looking for influence, you're looking for power, you're looking for validation, things like that. And there are people that live for those things. What do? Well, you look at your surrounding community, and then you do what it takes to become a rabbi or a scribe in order to get power, influence, admiration, things like that. Okay, so the rabbis, the Pharisees, the rabbis, those that were hypocrites at the time of Christ, they were church leaders. They had high up positions. You could say that they were doing all the right things, but they were doing all the right things for the wrong reasons. Okay, and sometimes they weren't doing the right things. Sometimes we focus on that too much. I think that there were probably some that were doing the right things, but they were doing it for praise, for attention. It basically like priestcraft, setting yourself up for a light because you want people to admire you. So and that's something that you can find in any community, any group of people. It doesn't have to be a religion. It could be a nation, and becoming a politician. It could be a business and becoming the boss, or maybe an executive. It could be a club. It could be an HOA, right? There's no shortage of videos on YouTube of HOA people that really, like, you can tell that they really enjoy that job and they really like nitpicking at people in their community for violations of the HOA code. I used to live in an HOA and it sucked. Um, so anyway, so there are people in this church that could have an amazing record on paper, but inside they are not a good person. They're not, you know. Um, I've seen it before. I've seen it before where people look like they have an amazing church record, but when where no one can see them, they do some pretty despicable things. Things that are obviously sin, or or they're simply toxic people that treat people poorly. Um, Maybe they're controlling. Maybe they're manipulative. Um, so they're lookalikes. They're sheep's and wolves clothing. Okay, so
Wolves in sheep's clothing.
what I say?
Sheep in wolves clothing.
Yeah, wolves in sheep's clothing. Sorry. So I think that we need to be emotionally ready for that, because I'm assuming that people that live like that are willing to um, basically use the church as a way to get attention or power or influence or reap the benefits of being in an LDS community. I I'm not a judge, but I don't feel too good about their prospects moving into the millennium, or what happens in the eternities. So as much as possible, we need to get out of the fog so that uh, when that day comes, we're not shocked and surprised that they didn't make it, because I guarantee you that you already saw all the red flags with this person. Maybe you don't want to acknowledge them, or you want to kind of justify for them or kind of explain it away. But deep down in your heart of hearts, you know who they really are. If you've observed this person for long enough, which would probably be the case for anyone who's the family member of one of these people. So, anyway, the point is, just like it's saying here, if you're married to one, Okay, maybe you were tricked, you were duped, whatever. They put on a really good show in the beginning, um, but later it turned out that they were not celestial people. Uh, you know, you're not gonna. It's not like you're gonna miss out. You're gonna like, oh, sorry, you just made a bad decision, or oops, sorry, that's just how the cookie crumbles. No, it's gonna work out for you. It's gonna work out for you. Okay, so moving on. We may be sure that the Lord is not going to permit in any ordinance which we perform incorrectly through our lack of understanding to be left binding forever without correction. During the millennium, there will be a great deal of adjusting, where we, for lack of proper knowledge, have performed sealings ignorantly, but according to our best judgment. See, and that's the thing. Only right now, only the Lord knows, the cards in your hand. Only He knows really what's going on. So we're not called to be like, oh no, you can't get sealed. I mean, there is like an interview, but again, people lie. So yeah, okay. Only mortals can perform temple ordinances. Will resurrected beings during the millennium actually take part in the endowment work of the temple along with mortal beings? The answer to this question is no. That is, they will not assist in performing the ordinances. Resurrected beings will assist in furnishing information, which is not otherwise available, but mortals will have to do the ordinance work in the temples. Okay, we're going to skip down. How soon? No, we're not going to read that one. I think that's going to be it for volume 2. And then there was something I wanted to read here in volume 3. I need to click on that. Okay. Okay, now here's another little bit of it. Okay, deceased children to choose mates in Millennium. Deceased children to choose mates in Millennium. We have people coming to us all the time, just as fearful as they can be, that a child of theirs who has died will lose the blessing of the kingdom of God unless that child is sealed to someone who is dead. They do not know the wishes of their child who died too young to think of marriage, but they want to go straight to the temple and have a sealing performed. Such a thing as this is unnecessary and, in my judgment, wrong. The Lord has said through his servants that during the millennium, those who have passed beyond and have attained the resurrection will reveal in person to those who are still in mortality all the information which is required to complete the work of these who have passed from this life. Then the dead will have the privilege of making known the things they desire and are entitled to receive. In this way, no soul will be neglected, and the work of the Lord will be perfected. It is the duty of parents who have children who have died and who were old enough to be endowed to go to the temple and perform this endowment for them. When you have done this, you may let the matter of further work rest. Accept the sealing of these children to their parents until the proper time comes. So, the way that he words it here, okay, so you're a child, you die, you're righteous, you're headed toward the celestial kingdom. He says here the dead will have the privilege of making known the things they desire and are entitled to receive. So, I don't know if like you're resurrected and then you tell your family, look, I want to be sealed to her. We've been dating in the we've been dating in the spirit world, and I really like this girl. Can you go get sealed for us? Or if, because like, at that point you have a body, you're resurrected, but still, based on everything that we've read and that we know, it seems that all those things have to be done by people that are still in mortality. So The way he words it here, it seems like that would be the case, but I guess we won't know for sure until the millennium comes. Um, but anyway, it's important to realize that uh, things are going to be there's like you said in volume 2, there's going to be a lot of adjusting that's done. There's going to be a lot of adjustments in families, in family structures. I swear there was like another place. Oh yeah. Okay, we're going back to volume 2. We're going back to volume 2. No salvation without our dead. Sealing power continues. Family in eternity. The doctrine of salvation for the dead of temple work holds out to us the glorious prospect of the continuance of the family relation. Through it, we learn that family ties are not to be broken, that husbands and wives will eternally have a claim upon each other and upon their children to the latest generation. However, in order to receive these privileges, the sealing ordinances in the temple of our God must be obtained. All contracts, bonds, obligations, and agreements made by men shall come to an end. But the obligations and agreements entered into in the house of the Lord, if faithfully kept, will last forever. This doctrine gives us a clearer concept of the purposes of the Lord toward his children. It shows his abundant and unlimited mercy and love to all who obey him. I, that word, all who obey him. I, even to those who are rebellious. For in his goodness he will grant great blessing even unto them. It's been said, that if you're the parent of a child that's gone astray, you'll still have some claim upon them after this life. Not to say that they would receive the same blessings because they didn't live a life that was in accordance with the gospel, but you would still within your kingdom or however things are organized, you would still have them in some way. You know, I'm assuming that you go to the celestial kingdom, you go to the terrestrial kingdom. It's probably not just like okay, well, you guys have fun for the rest of eternity. There might still be things that you're expected to do, or things that you engage in, work of some kind, or you maybe you help those that are celestial, and you carry out assignments, or you help with that work. Not to say that you're like a slave or a servant, but maybe there's like maybe you do have like obligation though to do things. And so if you've had a child, maybe they just fall under your you know domain or whatever. Okay, membership in family of God. When everything gets finished, we will all be one family. Every member of the church, a member of one family, the family of God. So here we're talking about like a separate family. You have the whole human family, but when you're talking about those of the church, those who get sealed, this is now the way that he's terming it here, the family of God. Okay, and we will all be subject to our first progenitor, Adam, Michael, the archangel, who has been appointed and given authority under Jesus Christ to stand at the head and preside over all his posterity. We are one family, and we will have to be joined to that family. So it is not merely enough that we be baptized for our dead or for ourselves, but also we have to be sealed to our parents. We must have the parents sealed to their parents, and so on, as far back as we can go, and eventually back to Adam. Now, an interesting thing, um, I was trying to find President Nelson's talk where in one of the footnotes, now I covered this. Okay, I have this playlist right here. It's called President Nelson's General Conference Talks, and it was a series that I was doing. I do plan to finish it at some point. I kind of stopped at 14 of 31. Now it's more than 31, by the way. But there were one of these talks. I wasn't able to find it, but in the footnotes, he referred to a talk from Wilford Woodruff. I think it was Wilford Woodruff, and he was addressing the practice of, um, I think it was called like spiritual adoption, because back in the early days of the church, you didn't have a father or a mother who was already a member of the church, because the church was brand new, and maybe they were already passed away, or they didn't convert to the church with you. And so there was kind of this practice back then where people would want to be adopted and sealed to, like, the prophet or a general authority or just somebody in the church that, could be their parent. Uh, that might sound strange to us, but it makes all the sense in the world. If you were back then, it's like, well, who am I going to be sealed to? I'm just like out here. I'm not like grafted into anything. It's like me and my wife, and who are we sealed to? Nobody. So, um, so it's going to be interesting when everything is said and done. You know, because just a minute ago we were talking about being married to somebody that was not really celestial. They're actually terrestrial or telestial. Well, same thing with sons, daughters, and parents. Uh, you know, and there are concerns. I have concerns about different people, in my personal life. Um, Family structures are going to look different than here. We have to remember that we're in a fallen world, a fallen state, and everything is mixed together. Um, it'll be interesting to see how everything works out. You know, uh, it will work out in some way, but we have to realize that there's going to be a lot of adjustments between how families are here in this fallen telestial condition versus the family of God when everything is finalized. All right, so there will be cases where some of our ancestors will not be worthy and will drop out, but the links will have to be joined without them. So when the prophet says we cannot be saved or exalted without our dead, he had this in mind. He had this in mind, being sealed, being sealed into the family of God. Suppose we do not have any work for our ancestors, then where are we? We are out on a limb. We leave ourselves on the sidelines. We are not joined into this great family. We may be born under the covenant and thus belong to our parents, but uh, where there are breaks in that lineage, we are not united. Okay, sealing is essential to membership in God's family. And therefore, when the prophet says we cannot be exalted without them, he is thinking of the family connections generation to generation. And if we are going to sit down and do nothing and let our ancestors, whose history we can obtain, go without having their work done, are we just setting ourselves off on the side? We are not members. We do not have the credentials which permit us into that family. You see how important it is that we labor for our dead? Why do we go into the temples to be sealed, husbands and wives and children to parents? And why are we commanded to have this work done, not only for ourselves, but also to be sealed to our fathers and mothers and their fathers and mothers before them, back as far as we can go? Because we want to belong to that great family of God which is in heaven. And so far as the church is concerned on earth, that is why. Um, I might as well just read this too. No perfection without our dead. Now, some members of the church have wondered just what was meant by the words of the prophet that we, without our dead, cannot be made perfect. Well, he basically just covered that. So I'm gonna skip down. Um, Perfection comes through celestial family organization. We are taught in the gospel of Jesus Christ that the family organization will be, so far as celestial exaltation is concerned, one that is complete. An organization linked from father and mother and children of one generation to the father and mother and children of the next generation, thus expanding and spreading out down to the end of time. If we fail to do the work, therefore, in the temples for our dead, You see our links in this chain, genealogical chain, will be broken. We will have to stand aside at least until they are remedied. All right, that's just okay. Okay, I'm going to end it there for that. Um, so it's gonna again, it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be sad. Everyone, you know, whether it's your family or not, even if it's just friends, everyone's gonna be sad for anyone that does not achieve everything that they could in this life. You have a friend, even if you have an acquaintance that you're fond of, they choose to reject the gospel. It's going to be sad. So there's going to be there's sadness, but it's also going to be really good and happy once you have your final family in God's family, right? Um, I think there's going to be a lot of joy. There's going to be a lot of hearts that are mended. You may have people that you're related to that are not good people. They're toxic, and maybe you feel like you were entitled to have a good mom, dad, grandparent, aunt, uncle, whatever, but they were not what they should have been in this life. Well, I think a lot of that's going to be fixed. If you live worthily, you're sealed into this family of God, and literally everybody will be what you should have had or what you were entitled to in this life. Everybody is entitled to loving family members. It doesn't matter how they're related to you. Everybody should be loving toward you. You should be loving toward everybody. It doesn't happen in this fallen state, but it will. And that's going to be one of the greatest blessings, is being part of a family that truly everybody is treating you the way that they should. And again, in families themselves, there are wheat and there are tares, and that can be really hard, especially if like you're the only wheat and you're surrounded by tares. Sometimes that happens, but it's all going to be fixed. Um, I tried to find I did a video somewhere where it was talking about how basically everything's going to be fixed in the millennium. Um, like it seemed to be talking about like everything, but so as I was like searching for it, I came across this talk. I'm not going to read from the talk, but he has two footnotes from Revelation 7 and Revelation 21. So Revelation 7:17, oh, there's a 17. It says, "For the Lamb which is in the midst of the throne shall feed them, and shall lead them unto the living fountains of waters, and God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes." And then it says kind of the same thing in Revelation 21. At this point, in Revelation 21, we're talking about a celestial earth. Um, so it says here, "And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow, nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away." Okay, so both in the millennium and also obviously in the celestial kingdom, once the earth is celestialized, all these things that everyone has dealt with, it's all going to be fixed and taken care of. Um, oh, by the way, I meant to mention, so I was doing this series of President Nelson's talks. Remember, I interviewed Elise from the Of One Heart channel, and that's what she is currently working on. So I would recommend to subscribe to her. Uh, she is from the Kansas City area, so it's really cool. She's a Midwest saint, and that's what she's doing. So subscribe to Elise. This is on my homepage, okay, under featured channels, but I'll put her link in the description below. Also, because we've been talking about like genealogy stuff, remember my most recent interview was with Jojo, the Joyous genealogist. Make sure to subscribe to her as well. She's doing a lot. She's going to be doing a lot of like genealogy content, and so check them both out. Okay. All right. I wanted to read a little bit from want to read a little bit from President Nelson's talk called Revelation for the Church, Revelation for Our Lives. Okay, this was, excuse me, April 2018. So this was his first general conference as prophet. Okay, and there's a few things here I wanted to read. He, just to demonstrate, this is like one example where it's being talked about in general conference. I feel like this topic is coming up more because, say that you're a prophet and general authority, you know that sometime soon the millennium's going to come in. You must be fully aware of all these things that are going to happen. Obviously, you're a prophet. This is like your life now. It's been your life ever since you were called as an apostle, and maybe before if you're a 70 or something. So how do you start to prep the church for these changes that are coming? Well, I think that they put things in general conference talks to get our minds thinking about this stuff. So he says here, I also owe much to my forebears. All 8 of my great grandparents were converts to the church in Europe. Each one of these stalwart souls sacrificed everything to come to Zion. During subsequent generations, however, not all my ancestors remained so committed. As a result, I was not raised in a gospel centered home, which is interesting, right? And he became prophet. I adored my parents. They meant the world to me. It taught me crucial lessons. I cannot thank them enough for the happy home life they created for me and my siblings. So I'm guessing this must be him right here, President Nelson. It looks like him. To me, it looks like him. And yet, even as a boy, I knew I was missing something. One day, I jumped on the streetcar and went to an LDS bookstore to find a book about the church. I loved learning about the gospel. As I came to understand the word of wisdom, I wanted my parents to live that law. So one day, when I was very young, I went to our basement and smashed on the concrete floor every bottle of liquor. I expected my father to punish me, but he never said a word. As I matured and began to understand the magnificence of Heavenly Father's plan, I often said to myself, quote, I don't want one more Christmas present. I just want to be sealed to my parents. That longed for event did not happen until my parents were past 80, and then it happened. I cannot fully express the joy that I felt that day, and each day I feel that joy of their sealing and my being sealed to them. So in his case, I guess much later in life they did come around and started living the gospel and all that, so they were able to be sealed. So that worked out. Here is President Nelson in Dancel. This is his first wife. She's cute. She's pretty. In 1945, while I was in medical school, I married Dancel White in the Salt Lake Temple. She and I were blessed with 9 splendid daughters and 1 precious son. Today, our ever-growing family is one of the greatest joys of my life. That is so many kids. That is so many kids. I wanted to have a much larger family, and I'm hoping that maybe somehow that can happen in the millennium. Just right, it can't. Anyway, I'm not going to go into that. There's reasons why we can't really do that right now. My wife has to have C-sections. That's like one of the reasons. Um, it's like getting riskier each time, but it's just hopefully I would really like to have more kids. Anyway, okay, in 2005, after nearly 60 years of marriage, my dear Dancel was unexpectedly called home. For a season, my grief was almost immobilizing, but the message of Easter and the promise of resurrection sustained me. Okay, now here he is with Wendy. He says, Then the Lord brought Wendy Watson to my side. I wonder if she's at all related to my mission president, John Watson, in Ogden. I don't know, maybe not, but they have the same last name. We were sealed in the Salt Lake Temple on April 6th, 2006. Wow. I wonder if he planned it that way or if that's just how it happened. But on April 6th, that's the same year that I got married, by the way, in November. Um, how I love her. She is an extraordinary woman, a great blessing to me, to our family, and to the entire church. She really is. Her, my gosh, her talks are some of the best that you'll ever hear because I think she likes to kind of let the cat out of the bag a little bit or spill the beans, give us little hints here and there. I love her talks. Um, each of these blessings has come as a result of seeking and heeding the promptings of the Holy Ghost. Um, said President Lorenzo Snow, quote, "This is the grand privilege of every Latter-day Saint, that it is our right to have the manifestations of the Spirit every day of our lives." So now here's okay. So here's where it's getting into. Okay, I'm probably gonna lose a few people here. Um, we don't know. We don't know if polygamy is going to come back in in some way. It seems to kind of continue in this sense that President Nelson, he's sealed to Dancel and to Wendy. He's a living example of somebody that he has two eternal companions. I know there's a lot of I see a lot of people arguing, uh, that it's not right or that it was like a relic of the old church, which I don't want. I please for heaven's sake, do not have a debate about this, like a heated debate in the comments. Um, in the Book of Mormon, it says that it is ordained when the Lord wants to grow a population. Normally, the standard is one man and one woman, but when the Lord sees fit and He wants to grow a population of people, it's instituted. And so it makes sense that it would have happened. Well, I think that it was more the kind of like just the standard back during the times of Abraham and Israel, although it was obviously beneficial as far as creating nations, right? Um, the 12 sons of Israel, they come from four different mothers. That's how important it was. In the more latter days now, it was important because it did, in fact, grow the church. And I myself am a product of that through a couple different lines. So I owe my body's existence to plural marriage. Now, the thing that I think, okay, and don't think it like I'm trying to like make a case for it or what, but we're about to go through a pretty extreme depopulation event. Okay, we're going into a time when everyone that's living a telestial law will not be moving forward, and I don't think there's really a way to tell what percentage of the world that is. You know, is it a third? Is it half? Is it 60%? I don't know. I don't know, but any percentage, even if it was just like 25%, that's going to be a really big hit to the world population. So, um, and we know that because, like, when you think about the Earth, okay, in fact, I wonder if there's like some kind of statistic. What percent of Earth's land is inhabited by humans? According to Eureka Alert, it says human beings take up a lot of real estate, around 50 to 70% of the Earth's land surface. But of course, that probably includes like stores, football fields, parks, stuff like that. Uh, Curious Meerkat or Meerkat dot. Okay. How much of the land on Earth is covered by humans? According to them, approximately 10%. Who the heck knows? But my point is, you know, in the millennium, when the Earth is a paradisiacal world, it might be a lot easier to inhabit places that are not currently very habitable, right? Let's take a look at the world. Africa. Let's go here. Let's go to satellite view. Okay, I'm going to satellite view because everyone knows that the northern part of Africa and also the Middle East, it's all desert. It's maybe not so much the Middle East, but Africa, places like Chad, Libya, Algeria. You zoom in here. Let's zoom in. Do you see any? Do you see any thriving cities or even roads or anything over here? Anything other than dirt and sand? No. But when the Earth is in a paradisiacal state, I'm not so sure that we will have deserts anymore. I would imagine, and then same thing for like up here in Siberia or parts of Canada. Did you know that I brought this up before on the channel, but Nunavut? What do you think the population is of Nunavut? It's a Canadian province. Okay, what do you think the population is? Well, let me tell you. What is the population of Nunavut? Oh, 38,000 people. Okay, so imagine one of our U.S. states. Okay, if it only had a population of of 38,000 people. Um, yeah, so there is a lot of land that may become inhabitable during the millennium. I mean, look at Greenland. Now, there are a bunch of like little towns and stuff in Greenland. Look at this. This is uh, what is it? Atamik. And I think there with a lot of these, there's even the street view. Let's go to this right here. Okay, so there's people living like there's people living like this. And by the way, I've done a lot of like street views, just personally looking at Greenland. They all look like this. They virtually all look like this. Um, what what kind of life is that living in Greenland? But anyway, the point is that I would assume that throughout the millennium, there's going to be a lot of spreading across the face of the earth. Even like think about Antarctica down here. Antarctica, that's like the one of the least habitable places in the world. Okay, all there is down there is like scientific stations, research outposts, and probably more. Probably more um, military wise. But so anyway, the point is, I'm not saying that it will come back, but I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if it's one of the things that's part of the restoration. And I don't think that everybody will be required to live it. Um, I do think that there's probably going to be more women than men that live righteously. So that might be one reason for it. There might also be the reason of repopulating the earth and spreading out and inheriting the entire earth, not just the places that are currently populated. Um, so I'm going to imagine this. Imagine that, okay, well, first, imagine that you're Joseph Smith. Everyone gives Joseph Smith a hard time because he had plural wives. He had something called spiritual, what was it called? Spiritual marriages, or basically spiritual sealings, where you had these women that they had men that were not members of the church, and there was like no hope of that. I guess I don't know, and so he was sealed to them. Now, back up. Imagine that you're Joseph Smith. You've brought forth and translated the Book of Mormon, and then you've had all these people following you from New York to Pennsylvania to Ohio to um, Missouri. There's been all sorts of hardships, tar and featherings, and persecution and sacrifice. And then suddenly the Lord comes to you and he's like, okay, now it's time to introduce plural marriage. How would you feel in that circumstance where you're already kind of like, is everybody still okay? Or everyone still on board? And now, like, you're tasked with introducing plural marriage to the church. Because some of the critics of the church are like, well, why wasn't he open with it? Or why didn't he, he was keeping it secret. He was a pervert, all these like horrible things. But let me just ask you, how would you roll that nugget of information out to the church after all these things that have happened? And so it makes sense to me that he would have like tried to find a way to like make that process a little bit as smooth as possible. Now, move forward 200 years and we have President Nelson. What if he knows, what if he's been instructed to kind of get this idea going again? Because what if it gets reinstituted? And don't think that it's going to be required. The Lord's not going to require anybody to do this. If you're someone that's totally against it, that's fine. There's other people that are okay with it. And just, you're not going to be forced to do anything that you don't want to. But imagine that that is on the schedule for the millennium. Just pretend that it is. How would you go about rolling that out in preparation for the millennium? Well, I'd imagine that you might be doing it the way that President Nelson is. Um, he touches on this topic, you know, somewhat frequently, not like right on the nose, but he's not shy about talking about the fact that he has two wives. Okay, everyone in the church, no, there should be nobody that is surprised that he's sealed to Dancel and to Wendy, right? And he's not the only one. He's not the only one. And then, so let's see. Do we read all this? Okay, so he says he's talking about receiving revelation. Okay, this whole thing is about the name of the talk is Revelation for the Church, Revelation for our lives. Okay, this is a situation where it was revealed for his life to get sealed to Wendy. And down here he says, to strengthen my proposal to Wendy, I said to her, quote, I know about Revelation and how to receive it. I mean, do you think that she trusted him being the prophet? Um, Actually, no, they got married before he was prophet. He was an apostle, but still. To her credit, and as I've come to learn, typical of her, she had already sought and received her own revelation about us, which gave her the courage to say yes. So it was through personal revelation that happened, right? And we've talked about just adjustments and things that are going to happen during the millennium. It's going to be important to have personal revelation, possibly for things like this. Now, to wrap this up, um, this is a talk that I come back to time and time again, just because it's so, it's still just like so unbelievable to me. This is Come Follow Me. This is now a year later. This is April 2019. And this is the one where he says time is running out. And he gives us a picture of a burnt down city, okay, before he says that time is running out. That's Paradise, California, by the way. Now, before he says time is running out, he shares this story, okay? Now look at this. Okay, one such dear friend of mine had limited experiences with God, but he longed to be with his departed wife. So he asked me to help him. I encouraged him to meet with our missionaries in order to understand the doctrine of Christ and learn the gospel covenants, ordinances, and blessings. That he did. But he felt the course they advised would require him to make too many changes in his life He said, quote, "Those commandments and covenants are just too difficult for me. Also, I can't possibly pay tithing. I don't have time to serve in the church." Then he asked me, "Once I die, please do the necessary temple work for my wife and me so that we can be together again." End quote. And so he says, "Thankfully, I am not this man's judge, but I do question the efficacy of proxy temple work for a man who had the opportunity to be baptized in this life, to be ordained to the priesthood, and receive temple blessings while here in mortality, but who had made the conscious decision to reject that course." Okay, here's a situation where there's a guy that, because I don't know if she was already a member of the church. Maybe I don't know. Does he say? No, he doesn't really say. But like, for example, if she was a member of the church, she was married to him, a non-member, and then he has this attitude, well, he may lose her, and she may end up with somebody else later on, right? And so this is just like another like scenario that's being put out there, um, showing us how things may require adjustment in the millennium or after this life. Um, did I highlight this? No, this is from before. Let me just read it anyway. "My dear brothers and sisters, Jesus Christ invites us to take the covenant path back home to our heavenly parents and be with those who we love." Okay? He invites us to come follow me. And notice how he says here, to be with those who we love. Okay? "Now, as president of this church, I plead with you who have distanced yourselves from the church, and with you who have not really sought to know that the Savior's church has been restored. Do the spiritual work to find out for yourselves, and please do it now. Time is running out." And when he says this, he like leans into the microphone as if to emphasize time is running out. Maybe he doesn't know exactly when the second coming is going to happen, but maybe he has some sense, or who knows, maybe the Savior said, "Hey, time is getting really close. I need you to tell them that time is running out. Get your stuff together right now because I'm coming." So it would behoove all of us to really take this seriously, because I've never heard any prophet talk like that before. After showing us a picture of a burnt down city, a city that was literally burnt down. And then he says that. Okay, so that's going to be it for this one. Hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also make sure to share this, and I'll talk to you guys later.